Beautiful. So that's the daily. Understanding where we're coming from, drawing liquidity for the daily. You've got to have an idea. 4 hour, just use for that direction. Make sure I start at the right time. Beautiful. So on GU, we have come into a top 4 hour point here. Now, like I said, this 4 hour point is more than likely weak as the daily point didn't break through the daily low. So you're kind of expecting that this will not hold enough value to break the low, but it'll take a 4 hour low. Okay. We look at EU, same type of situation. We've come up to this point that did break an internal low on the 4 hour, but more or less it's still sitting in here. So I'm expecting this price to induce more sellers by pushing and breaking through a 4 hour low. That is literally all I'm looking at. We've obviously got high, low, breakthrough external, retest. We then broke that internal. Now we've come all the way back up, and now we're just looking for price to take something of somewhat of importance on the 4 hour, react, and push back up to the upside. Okay. Both pairs at the start of the week induced a 4 hour low. Very, very cleanly. So yeah, from there we can just jump down to the 15 minute. We know where price is heading on the 4 hour. Now it's just our job to try and work out how to get in that. So the chance of going lower, very, very slim given what we've taken. And you can kind of expect, and this is where my outlook on the week was actually wrong to start with. This point on GU will get destroyed. Okay. So for me, this is just automatically a smart money trap, straight up. The moment we break through this low, given we've got obviously break, retest, push, the moment we've broken through this low, we've now got another smart money trap, and we've got an area of demand here to push price up. So I wouldn't be surprised if there's an entry that we missed coming into the week. More or less, you've kind of got this area here. If we want to look at what's broken what, like this is the first low here. So this entire area of demand is valid. More or less just looking for the inducement, and then we can buy this thing up from there. If I jump on the hour, we'll see there's an hourly point that sits there, and I imagine there's a huge 4 hour point that sits there. So literally anywhere in there will fill an imbalance and come into an institutional point. At the same time, EU has broken to the upside. What's confirmed by the break is retest and push. So for us, we know that we are now retracing. We're just looking for an inducement low to get sellers in because we're not in a point that can continue lower. Like I said, we've taken a 4 hour low. We've then induced 15-minute liquidity, funnily enough. And now we've broken for sure with our second confirmation on the 15 minutes. So for both pairs, we should have been bullish on the week, understanding that our 4 hour highs are actually weak supplies. Okay. Um, no other point in here even matters. We've got huge imbalance to fill. We've got break with a necessary retest that's somewhat close. So for me, like we should be targeting the shit out of this point. GU, more or less the same thing. External break, retest, take. Given that this took 4 hour low, this is a high value point. But given that this took a 4 hour low, we have enough liquidity to push through this thing. So we should be buying on GU at least until we take this high. On EU, we should be buying to at least take this high. So they're kind of my drawing liquidity for the day of Monday. Okay. I think that'll make sense. If that doesn't make sense to anyone, let me know. We can skip to our first session into here. Beautiful. So both pairs are coming into session. This also kind of aligns with what we're looking at as well in terms of we've got a bit of a gap. We could fill the gap to continue up. Given we've got break here, it's hard to find a break in the middle of this area here because there is a gap. But realistically, I would be I'm going to treat it like this as supply to demand area. There's nothing there, but that's what I'm going to treat it as. So for me, the entire point from this high to this low is valid for me to buy. That lines up with GU. So that's just my outlook on that. It's hard with gaps. It takes a lot of seeing them to kind of have an understanding like that, but that's what I'm kind of view. Supply, it looks like we've got a mini reaction here that's pushed up. So for me, I think it's valid to look for a buy literally anywhere in there, even if that's just below this wick being retest. So we can mark this out as liquidity coming into the session. Like that. Cool. Beautiful. So smart money traps now a go, which is beautiful. What have we got as confluences for buyers? You've got trap city up the top. You've got more low levels resistance to liquidity that hasn't been taken. So there's been no inducements here. And then you've kind of got the same deal on EU forming as well. Cool. We look like we're getting into the session now. I'll go more and we'll have a look. Cool. So we're already pushing up a player. Sweet. So what we've had is obviously push, break, which has created retest. So we've actually got a point that we can worry about in terms of where sellers can get back in control. And we've got a point that we can target as a smart money trap. Okay. We know that the point of retest is more than likely a point of smart money trap. So this just gives us a place of invalidation on GU. Okay. Important piece of liquidity, break, retest. Sellers are in control from this range to this range. Okay. Coming into that buyer's areas, like I've said, we've got that inducement and we've got an invalidation before possibly they can get back in control. This point is a strong point. It may want to medium induce before it pushes higher. So at least we've got that invalidation target. We've got order flow up the top, which also adds to that. We've also got, as an extra confluence, is you've obviously got this break and that being retest as well. So all of this order flow can kind of be our target in an invalidation for us in this trade if we get into one. So can jump down to a lower time frame. Me, that's retest of that break. Nothing we can do on EU at all. I imagine EU is just going to fucking run. You've kind of got break here as it did make somewhat equal highs, unfortunately. You've got an internal break here. Break and retest if it wants to give it. I think it's kind of valid to set that, targeting that, given the current confirmations. Like I said, it's interesting with the gap, but we have tapped into that 15-minute point, which is an area of came into that supply and created a supply to demand. So we've got more or less a little bit of manipulation on the inside of that point. Like I said, hard point to read. How we find the supply to demand is obviously that's our range with a point here. Come into that area of supply rather than making you lower low, we've pulled down and pushed up. So very, very simple and easy to find supply and demand points. As you can see, price ended up going. I don't know if it ends up tagging it in, but we'll see. Now you can treat this as two ways. You can treat this as one break, pull back up, second break. So you can either have a market execute with, let's say, like an 8 pip stop loss here, or you can go for your more set rules of break and retest at like a 6.5, cover a bit of spread. That entry there, we'll see if it, I don't know if it'll tag in. No tagging, gone, invalid now. If you had taken the entry off of the second point here, like that you would have just got tagged in, 8 pip stop loss, just and you'd be break even. So valid trade to look at depending on your rules on entry. Um, and yeah, I think that is kind of it. And she's gone. You would target realistically break even at this point. I would say take your partial at a 1 to 4. I don't see the point of taking a partial at 1 to 3 given our current management and understanding of this. I think you'd be cutting yourself short if you pulled 1 to 3. That to me doesn't make a lot of sense. And then you would kind of be targeting, depending on how you manage your trade. You've either got target swing highs at a 1 to 15. You can target the next supply at a 1 to 7 if you would like to do so. So maybe you go a 1 to 8 just on the inside of that imbalance in here. But understanding on the 4 hour, like these points are going to get destroyed. I'm not expecting really a retracement at all. There you go. Absolutely smashed. So quite an easy trade, quite an easy understanding, and it all comes down to your 4 hour analysis. So if you haven't analyzed the 4 hour properly, you miss this entirely. In terms of getting in the trade, just depends on how you enter this. Me personally, I don't even remember if I took this or not, but that would have been my entry, and I would have been okay in missing this. Understanding that that's that's the current situation. For me, that's fine. Unless on the 15 second we've got something a little bit more interesting. No, that's more or less the retest of what's important to me. Um, yeah, I don't think you'd necessarily get in this. Didn't react off of anything here. And then this just reacted off a random point, nonetheless, a little 15 second point. So that's probably one I wouldn't get into, but valid trade to start the week. You snag that, you can manage that how you like. Um, Beautiful. So, we'll manage it off of the 8 pip stop loss. May have even market executed that if you're crazy enough. Cool. Profit level 1 to 8. So valid 1 to 8 to start the week. Is there any questions on any of the understanding of what this is doing? Beautiful. Sweet. So coming into New York, I don't even see a point in looking. We know this point's going to get destroyed. We're very aggressive into this. Um, you've obviously got internal points you can look at, but for me, we're just so aggressive. I feel like if you've missed this and now you take a trade and you take a loss, you just want to fight someone. Um, Understanding this is a smart money, we can try and find a continuation entry. So we'll have a look. EU's more or less probably in a better spot to do so, given that we've already come into this point. I don't think you get a retracement after this. Like this is a valid point to sell, but we know we're not going to get a big selling opportunity from this. So you've got a medium inducement on GU here. I think it just takes this high out, just takes the internal high. You've got a medium inducement and a mitigation of a 15-minute point that broke through a 4-hour low. So they're all valid to look at. I mean, we can treat this pretty stock and standard, but I have a good feeling it's just not going to give what we want. So we'll have a look. So we've obviously got that there, which has then led to an internal break that is then mitigated and pushed. We have then not broken again. In terms of EU, we've taken those equal highs, which is a red flag to me already. Um, that would more or less be your invalidation coming from supply, which I call a weak supply given the current situation. I don't want to hold through this area. You've got obviously push, got a breakthrough, an internal supply to demand here. You've got a retest, which is, you can classify as a two leg as well. Huge stop loss, not worth it in that sense. GU has just taken an external low as well, so I don't love it. You could look at something like that, and you get smoked. You can look at, see now, GU's, this is the problem. GU's now broken through the high again. It's looking very, very bullish. Point is just so weak. Break of a high, push through, major inducement to be able to work off that. Yeah, so an entry like that one, you don't take something with a 7 pip stop loss if your break even is a 1 to 1. It's just silly. Uh, Mitigation of the last point, inducements mitigation. So now we're in a better spot. Coming to that extreme, just know the extreme is weak. No break, nothing on EU. I would need another confirmation. News, so you probably wouldn't be looking now anyway, and it's just going to keep pushing. Kind of done there anyway. Nothing to go with. So probably I don't think we looked because of news anyway, but given where we are, like you're fighting so much momentum. You're expecting this thing to flip on a dime from a 4-hour point that is more than likely going to get blown through. So, and that's why you just when you follow your 4-hour like that, if you're not into the buy into this point, it's probably not best looking for the sells there. No trade anyway. Like I said, you could have had that one on EU. down here. But like I said, I don't like the equal highs take either because it creates a really obvious point. Imagine it came into like a just a filled area of shit. More or less, how I kind of see this is this point a smart money trap or not? I see this as take of highs, internal inducement, push. So I see that as quick push, trying to buy in here somewhere. Obviously not possible given current structure and news, but that's more or less what I see here. This is bullish price action in terms of what is going on. Um, Obviously came into a bullish point that mitigated supply to demand as well. Just very, very bullish price action coming from an inducement. So not really any changes of momentum. Nothing that day. Trash. Go to the next day. Skip too far. All right. Back to the higher time frame. So we've got break, which is important here. Got retest, push, take of retest that's led to a new high. You've also got that take of liquidity here. So you're just breaking high. We're just so bullish at the moment. There is an entry here from memory as well. So we've got break, retest, which also mitigates that area of supply to demand here, and then starts to push up. Given that we've actually taken break, we took the retest here of that break, funnily enough. We've taken that retest area and we've started to push up with bullish price action. Given the current conditions of the market, we needed like a 15-minute points being taken. We need to take a 15-minute point of liquidity. So for that would be the smart money trap. If we look at this here, we've got obviously that break of that internal high, which we've taken liquidity from. We've come into the supply to demand of that area, which sits in here, which we've marked out here as obviously that internal break. So there's that manipulation earlier to show who's in control and what's happening. So a very valid point from a very valid area. We've then broken, retested, pushed. So we've taken 15-minute structure into the mitigation and we've started to push up bullish. We've then obviously had a second break here. We've taken this structure internally again and come further into this point. Still in a buyer's area, still taking 15-minute low. We need to take a 15-minute high. We're against every directional bias at the moment. So more or less see that as a smart money trap. We'll have to see what happens anyway. But this area would at least take the internal high to possibly continue lower. Okay, so you could have, rather than have that top area, have that. Okay, just understanding that we're getting an inducement in London. This could be signs, given that we've got our second break, signs of a retracement. Okay, you've got break, you've got an area of retest, the extreme demand, extreme supply here. Whereas on GU, we've kind of just got 15-minute range, mitigation, take of liquidity, just bullish, 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 bullish. Okay, we need another inducement. Inducement high is the way to go. So I think this is the one we missed, or it happened too fast, I think. So from memory, we follow internal structure. We've got break, retest here. This is fucking, I remember this is like 15-second price action. And break down first. No, we've broken up first. So push, break, retest, push, constantly pushing, which is great. We've then got obviously internal break with a retest and a push. So we're currently working in this external 1 minute range here. And on GU, we're obviously pushing through price, which is beautiful. Mitigation of this bottom area, which has then led to the push to the upside. We've broken through this high here, retest and push. So we're working in this area here with the internal inducement sitting underneath on both, which is quite clean. We've come into an area of what we think is a possible weak supply on both at the same time. So that's a key. We've then induced a low on both. Next, we need to see what happens. So off of that inducement, we've also had the mitigation of our bottom demand area. Imagine there's a 2 minute point in there. I can go have a look for you guys. 3 minute point that sits at the bottom. So we know we have just bullish price action at the moment. We're getting no bearish price action. We've got a 3 minute point here. So the divergence on this, there's none. They're the exact same. The exact same on both pairs. So we don't have a divergence yet. We aren't indicated of a change of direction. We're still bullish. Okay. Come into that area, come London Open, which is beautiful. From that, we've had this area, obviously. That was our internal break, remember? So we've had that internal break here, which means this area is the area of supply that led to that internal break. Okay, so we've got area of supply, area of demand sitting here. So that's the two areas fighting against each other. As for EU, it's the same. Area of supply that's pushed through an internal, coming to area of demand. Okay, so the two are fighting against each other. I need to see which one is more than likely not in control. Okay, because we're coming from a point we think is a weak supply, but we don't know yet. So what do we get off of that reaction? We come into this area of supply and we immediately push down and break internal price action here. Okay? So it gives a really quick reaction and a really quick reaction up. Well, entry model of a smart money trap, knowing that something's a smart money trap, is you get quick reaction down, quick reaction up, and trap in early sellers very quickly. At the exact same time, we react off of this point here and we come into demand. So at the exact same time that EU is respecting demand here and coming into demand, GU at the same time has built an internal low that indicates of a smart money trap. So I'm getting bearish trapping confirmations here, and I'm getting bullish confirmations on EU. Okay. What we then have happen is obviously push up, which leads into a two leg. Obviously, you can enter on the two leg. Okay. Very, very valid, just normal structure, weak supply that did not break through, come into an area of demand, two leg go. The ultimate confirmation is this trapping here on GU. That is the last confirmation. The entry on both is literally, I would cover the highs here, cover the lows. My break even is the take of this point. Understanding that that is the inducement. That gives us the inducement we were worried about. Targeting the external high. Okay. EU, given that we're getting a divergence at the same time on GU, the entry on EU is off of the two leg. So you've got one, pull down two, set off of the second area of demand. You don't need to cover the lows. We don't need another inducement. You're well unlikely okay to cover the lows. That's fine. For me, 6.5 is pretty good on EU. Understanding that that is a break even. In terms of targets, the targets on EU are a little bit different because we're so bullish. So we'll have a look for targets on EU. You'll have to go to a higher time frame, unfortunately. Kind of target those external highs. Yeah. Remember, this is the weak area. Funnily enough, equal high build up. So, I mean, you'd be very, very easy to target that for a 1 to 5. Use your 1 to 4.85. So that would be my full take profit target. I would not be taking partials on this trade. That's the one we missed. Or you could have taken GU at the same time. Okay. The divergence confirmation is GU taking those lows to give a smart money trap out of this area of supply and showing that it's a weak supply. On EU, it's just bullish price action. Break, I mean, you can look at this so many ways. Break, retest, push, got your two confirmations, internal, two leg. I mean, you can look at that multiple ways. That's one you can catch without using the divergence on both. And this is strictly just a continuation entry model that I'm trying to teach you guys. So either or is quite nice. So what's that? Tuesday, and both days have had a stupid trade. So it's secure 1 to 3 on GU, obviously targeting the highs. In terms of high time frame targets, it's completely up to you how you manage something like this. For me, I'm happy just targeting whatever the high is that's close to me, but you can, for instance, target this 4 hour high if it's something you wanted to look at doing. I'm not sure what that would run. 1 to 3.6. So you either go 1 to 3.3 here and want to secure an extra 0.3 for the risk of possibly getting stopped out of break even. So for me, I would just target the high. be happy, move on. 3% in a day is fucking gnarly. So that's the two entries there. Any questions on those two? Those entry models themselves are a little bit harder to watch. You need your weak supplies marked out and where we're coming from. So if we follow the inducements of the session, this is the first inducement of the session here. Cool. We've then come into our area of supply. We've then pushed back down and broken the low. So we've got another inducement low given in this bearish range here. Given that this area broke through this low without retest, it's more than likely an inducement. We haven't had our second confirmation. This area is our weak supply. Okay. You're trading in between your two inducement areas. Okay. That's why that's your break even. EU, we've had pull down and break, which is then retested and broken again. But that retest has then pushed us further into an area of valid demand on EU, given that that's that supply to demand area. So yes, we've taken that and that's great. And yes, we've got retest. We've then taken that retest and racked it from that bullish range again. So we're just simply getting taken that bigger retest into that area of supply to demand here, push up again, break into that area there. 15-minute take liquidity, 15-minute point. 15-minute take liquidity, 5-minute point, 15-minute area. Are you noticing that with momentum, we're taking the 15-minute point after we take 15-minute structure? So it's just something to, once you understand momentum, you can catch and hold trades for longer, understanding where we're heading. So EU is a little bit harder, given that we have got break and retest here. It is valid to look for sells here, which is why it gave such a prominent reaction. Very, very valid to do so. But once the moment we know that this point is being used as more of a trap with the quick breakdown, we can start looking for reactions here. So funnily enough, we got quick reaction down, quick reaction up. It just happened on the 5-minute. And GU was giving the little hints that this was doing that there by giving these bullish confirmations, seller's trap. Okay, so a little bit harder one in catching. GU is actually easier because EU and that point hold a bit of risk with that point, which is why you've got to wait for those lower time frame confirmations. In terms of any other ways to look at this, I don't really see. I don't really see any other way to look at that. So that's just more or less how I would manage that style. I mean, you've kind of got break, retest, break, took retest, push, mitigation. So you're mitigating down as you're mitigating demand as you push. Okay, so very 50-50 price action here. Given momentum, current market conditions, given GU, you can expect that EU will continue bullish. Okay, it's worth the risk anyway. Um, Alrighty. So coming into the area of supply here, take a 4-hour high into an area of supply. You've obviously had mitigation, mitigation. This is probably a demand to supply here as well. Quite a nice spot. GU, same type of deal. Literally 4-hour supply, take of a 4-hour high. So major inducement into mitigation. Can look for sells off of this thing. Um, you've got external break, retest external break, something you can set a limit off of straight away. Obviously, not fucking keen. And given getting into that, way too aggressive, no way we're getting in that. Once we take that retest and come into that area of supply in here, this whole area, is that one that we tried to get in? Same one? I reckon it is. We did. Beautiful. I reckon this is the one we tried to get in. Sweet. Let me explain how we tried to get in this one. This is the one, isn't it, Matt, that we tried to get in? I reckon.
Yeah, I believe so, but it just sort of went.
Because it kind of just did its thing. Cool. All right. So we've got 15-minute break, 15-minute retest. In this spot here, we're in a 4 hour point, major inducement into major inducement into major mitigation. We're gonna take the first 15-minute point. Just like the chances of not, so goddamn slim. Okay. GU, same thing, 15-minute break. If I can draw it correctly. Break, retest, push. Expecting for it to get destroyed. This area is always also a bit trappy because it is the retest of the internal break, but externally it is the retest. So we're kind of expecting both points to get destroyed that we've come into a 4 hour point. Okay. Given timing, we kind of want to try and take that down. Now, EU, the first break of structure, obviously internally is here. Pull up. That's our first area of supply. Okay. For me, that was way too high up. We hadn't reacted off anything to push it up to that point. So for me, I was more or less looking at, I think it was this entire area here, which I think is the 5 minute range. So for me, I had my 5 minute range here, external range like that. That's my area of supply I'm looking at. I think it's like probably like a 30-minute point, the big 30-minute point. Okay. Same on GU. At the time of GU, we obviously had break. Now this is where you needed to go on a lower time frame. So we've had mitigation, external break. Now, on this external break, we had a little bit of manipulation that you guys aren't familiar with. So we've retested. We've then broken internally. Given that we're on the 1 minute and we've broken internally, that for me counts as retest take. Okay, so it did take that high. Given that we didn't break external low, this breaking structure internally is still enough for me retest on this time frame, and it still gives me enough value that this supply is valid to look for to sell. Okay, so if we look on a higher time frame, what broke through our 5 minute low? We had extreme area, which has been mitigated. Then we've got an extra extreme area that we can obviously bring down a little bit more on the 5 minute. I'm not getting too specific with those points just yet. We then had this 5 minute point that sat here. These are the two areas, extreme and decisional, that broke my 5 minute low. These are both responsible for that low. Given the take of liquidity in here, this supply for me is valid. If we then look at what EU was doing at the exact same time, off the take of this bigger external low, which is actually what I had, sorry, as the external 5 minute low, we had retest, push. We had an inducement target and a mitigation target on EU. I'm expecting to come up to extreme as that's the only thing. Nothing else was responsible in this range for this break of structure. GU, I had 2 points. At the same time, GU pushed up into this area of supply I was interested in, and EU induced into the mitigation of my extreme area of my internal 5 minute break. Okay, so they're both in areas that are somewhat important. GU had also taken the internal retest here and liquidity inside this point, so both have induced into a mitigation. Both are coming from a higher time frame point, and there's not enough liquidity that's pushed these two to need to go to the extreme of every range. I don't need to go and mark out my life 5 minute point because we have not come into anything that makes it valid to come up this far. It doesn't need to come up this far. Just like on a higher time frame, if it comes into a 15 minute point, it doesn't have to come into the 1 minute point. So this 30 minute point on EU was plenty, and this obviously refined supply here was plenty fine. If you like to just cover the low and cover the whole supply area, completely fine. That's what I did at the time. Either or, completely looking in those two areas, inducement into mitigation. So given, obviously, we know that this is a weak low because we're targeting that 15-minute low. This 15-minute low did lead to that break, but we're coming out of a 4 hour point, so we can expect both of these as smart money traps. Now, that is up to you. This takes a higher level of like experience to understand that these areas are a level of smart money trap. Okay? Not something we want to expect, but every now and again you may use it for an entry. Okay. The reason I didn't take G is because I didn't want to expect that that was the thing. So what price is doing, it's respecting supply and pushing down. We're still not breaking through structure. We've then come into an area of smart money. What is smart money going to do? It's going to push price to the last area and induce. It's induced a low. which is then induced buyers into the market. It's then mitigated my last supply in my internal range and continue lower. So a valid selling position you could have had something like this. Now, obviously, you're not going to have that big of a pip stop loss, so you may refine your entry. You may get tagged in, you may not. Your break even is this low, understanding that I'm not treating this area as a complete smart money trap, and this could be enough. This inducement could be enough to push price all the way back up here to then take the 15-minute low. But I'm expecting the 15-minute low to go based on my 4-hour mitigation. That and the major inducement into it. So we've taken 4-hour structure into that. So break even once it hits the low, your target, your full TP would then be like a 1 to 3, 1 to 2.5. This is why I didn't take this. I didn't have enough risk to reward in this area to take the risk of this smart money trap possibly taking me out with spread or something silly. Cow did take this entry here, I believe. I think he's just sent it in. If I can pull it up on my screen. That's the entry that Cow took there. Perfect entry. Like I said, only reason I didn't take it is what was that, like a 1 to 1.3 maybe, or a 1 to 1.1 or something. That is the only reason. So I didn't think it was worth the risk and that loss. Okay. I think it went 1 to 1.1 or something. So valid trade. Now, in terms of getting in EU, so we've got inducement into mitigation. So at the same time we're coming on GU, we're doing this. These are exact same points in price. We're pushing down and it's showing a clear inducement out of that point. Quick inducement up, quick inducement down. At the same time we tried to get in EU. I stayed on the 1 minute. All I had was push down, push up, push down. I had this limit set and it missed me. That was the limit I set, holding my full take profit with no partials to this low. Yeah. I don't think you need to partial on a trade like this. I'm happy. I think it's worth the risk. Okay. You may want to go 1 to 3 and then full take profit 1 to 8. That's completely up to you. For me, I was fine to hold full, given how quickly we were moving. Obviously, I'm going to bet I'm going to take some partials, but more than happy to manage that trade at that moment like that. Didn't get tagged in. 15-second time frame. I won't. I'll very rarely just take something on the 1 minute off the 15 second. I need 1 minute range to then 15-second range. But you had pull down, pull up, pull down. You would have had to market execute on that 15-second break. Okay. For me, given that EU was in such a large range and could go a little bit higher, I wasn't willing to take the risk. But very worth the risk given what GU was doing. Either or was fine. Yeah, could have, Sean. Like I said, I just the risk of this possibly filling a little bit more space here for even GU
Mm.
to do this. GU could have done that. GU could have retested the break, pulled down, and then taken retest. Well, at the same time, EU may have done this. So for me, the confirmations on EU for an entry just weren't there. Um, Now, given like if this was Friday, given the week I had, I would have market executed. Would have been quite happy to take it. Worth the risk given what's happening. And then from there, I don't even know what happens after that. I know it takes a lot at some point. There you go. Okay. So this one makes sense to hold full, in my opinion. The session ends, and you're sitting at 1 to 4. So maybe you go 50% off 1 to 4 and go to bed, but this one's worth really taking all of it out. At the same time, you get take of liquidity, take of liquidity. So the only way I would have managed it different is if this had taken it and price was still sitting here. But that's worth taking full. That's something I would have held full to. So possible 2 trades there. So great week so far. We've had obviously that trade on GU, which is a lot harder to get into, 1 to 8, which is still running now, which is 1 to 20. You've then had this one on EU and this one on GU in here. Either or is valid, which is still running. Um, yeah, and then you've had those 2 trades there. So if you didn't take trades this week, you've got to look at these and really go back and look at this and understand and try and see this type of stuff because you've got continuations and reversals being played here. Um, Got to try and add them and at least see them. Remove all of this fun shit. We don't need all the smart money trap bullshit there anymore. Cool. Then we can. Is there any questions on any of that so far? No, sweet. All right, let's go next day. Beautiful. So nothing this day. I don't even think we were looking, to be honest. Yeah, nothing you can do. Need 15-minute structure as a minimum to take a trade, in my opinion, and we don't have any of that. So nothing here, nothing here. Just gotta ask yourself if you take any of these trades, would you try and take something here? Probably not. So the late nights that people complain about in terms of like, oh, I'm always up so late and I'm trading late. Well, that's when you trade late. That's when you don't. You understand those market conditions. Cool. All right. So we now have a little bit more of a 15-minute structure base going here. So 4 hour time frame on both. We have now come into our next area of supply. Okay. Mark out daily supply like that. Completely up to you. I think that's what I had. And this one took a retest and came into this daily break of supply here. Okay. So big taker liquidity, expecting somewhat of a reaction. Once again, quite happy to target 15-minute lows. I don't think we took anything in there. Maybe we did. That's Asian session, beautiful. And then London was there. Yeah, beautiful. So we've taken that liquidity, and on GU, if I can find my fucking line, we've come into that big area of supply. So both areas are valid to look for sells or retracements, okay? Because we're not expecting to hold something too long, but it's valid now. So what have we got? We've got break, retest, mitigation, big lot of liquidity with retest, but that doesn't mean shit until we obviously get down there. Break, retest, push. So now we're getting 15-minute structure taking place. Okay, we've got take of retest to a break of structure. Cool. So we've, for the first time in a whole day, we've actually got 15-minute structure. Yeah, like that. And then on GU, we had break, retest, take of retest, that then led to a break of structure. Off of that break of structure, we had retest here that then led to another break of structure. Very, very compact price action, which is good for reversals, which will play out in GU in a minute. Take of retest, break of structure. Yeah. So we're in this 4 hour point. We've just taken 4 hour liquidity. I'm expecting to come target 15-minute, especially now we're starting to move sideways rather than just up. So I'm expecting a retracement. Okay. 15-minute structure will tell us. As you can see, GU, I didn't take a trade on GU this day because the 15-minute structure is way too compact. Way too compact. But we've got this area here that has led to this range. So this entire area here is the valid area. You've got a really nice point that sits in here that has an imbalance as well. So we haven't filled an imbalance, which ticks a box. And we'll just mark out to the bottom of the range here. Okay, so we've got a target as to where GU can head. Because what you would understand is getting in trades is one thing, but you've got to know how to get out of trades as well. So retest, push here. This area of demand still has some room. So you could probably mark the bottom of the imbalance, which I imagine is a higher point. There you go, 30-minute point. I imagine the hourly point's a lot cleaner. No, it's too big for my eyes. More or less that area. It's up to you how you mark that out. But for me, the entire area, literally from this high to this low, is my area of supply, demand. Okay. So I now know I have targets as where invalidations will take place on these pairs. Let's replay price into the area because I took a sell on EU here. So we now know that this is my 15-minute range, high here, low here. So this was the problem on G is this point, more than likely a smart money given where we are, could have been a valid point to buy off of. EU, on the other hand, given that had just pushed through and broken a 15-minute high, meant that this low was more or less not going to hold if we follow EU. We just need to make sure that's the case. So jump down.
Like that.
What's that?
Oh
Laggy,
yeah.
laggy as hell, bro.
What?
Cooked it. Cooked it. So 15-minute range, medium inducement. Okay. Medium inducement high, we're more than likely going to take the next 15-minute low. We haven't got one, which means we're more than likely coming for this external point. Okay. So that's my thinking behind this. So that's my inducement of the session thus far. And I'm going to follow that until I take liquidity that's equivalent, that then makes sense to then come back up. We've got a possible buying point below, but more or less the 15-minute low should get absolutely destroyed. Okay. In the lining of that, we've also had this medium inducement. So both structure on both pairs is telling me that we're going to induce low. Okay. G obviously created a bit of a problem because it gave a retest, but more or less that's where we're going. So that's the inducement areas of where I'm looking. And from that, we're kind of going to work on where we're heading. Okay. Now, as price came into here, I did actually try and take a buy to understand that GU more or less may want to come take this high, and I could get a 1 to 3 in here, or even possibly this was the trap given what GU was doing. So I was unsure on what pair I was following. So I was quite happy to try and trade both. Okay. GU in itself was showing that it was going to give an inducement if GU, and this is just a bit of an experience, this 15-minute point I know is a smart money trap. What it's going to induce, I have no idea. The first high it can induce, we know that retest is important to us. So we've got obviously retest. We jump down a lower time frame. Retest was already taken. So that is my area of supply. So I know that if this smart money trap holds enough weight, it's going to push me to the next point to either induce or to mitigate. So I know that G is at least coming to here. If I can get in a buy and possibly hedge myself so that I can't lose for the session, because like I said, we just because I have an idea of where the inducements are doesn't mean it's going to follow them. I'm going to try and do that. So at the same time, G actually mitigated this bottom area. It showed that it was using this as a smart money trap. First indication, equal lows. Quick, quick move up, equal lows. So the next time for me, because this 15-minute point is valid, it has broken through a high. And what do we also know? If this is going to be treated as a bullish and an important demand to us, we need break, retest, push. Well, it's given us break, retest, push. So this demand holds weight. It holds enough. It is not just an inducement point because it's got that retest that it's created and continued. So it's created brand new structure in a 15-minute range. Whereas on EU, we've got 15-minute break. I don't even like this is not even retest. I don't even know what this is. This is disgusting. A lot better on GU rather than EU, but given that we've got this disgusting retest, it lines up with GU, which means this point could be valid as well. So I have 2 points that are possible smart money traps. If they aren't smart money traps, they will push and they will induce the high and continue bullish. Given that we're in a bullish market, I now understand that in this 15-minute range, it is valid to trade both because both have given retest and another break. Just like two confirmations on the 1 minute, remember it's fractal. So I understand that buyers are valid from here and sells are valid from here. Sells, buyers. Okay. The only thing I'm leaning more towards sells is because EU has taken that 4 hour high, that daily high, and GU is in that 4 hour point. So given that we've got bearish high time frame confirmations, I'm expecting a retracement, especially when we haven't had one in a while. But expecting where we are, sellers should be more in control. But I'm going to try my bets anyway. We'll see how we go. So I know that the first area of supply is this one here, this area. I'm more or less expecting the retest to get taken as the retest hasn't been taken right here. So we've got break, retest, push. So the only supply in this range, no other supply has led to anything. This supply, you can go from the retest, has led to an internal break in here. There is not another internal break. Nothing is important in here. That is the only break. There is no structure in here that is somewhat important to use as a break of structure. That's why you've got to remember break, the external structure is important, and then break and retest is important. On GU, this was the retest, but like I said, a lower time frame, this is also a supply that has broken through the retest. We've taken the retest and broken through it. That's where I took the loss on GU. No, beautiful. So hopefully this will help explain that. So understanding that buyers can get in control here, and then I found my seller's point here and here, and above this retest. I know that sellers can get in control. Let me just view Cow's thing. Sold here. Yep. So you looked at a point that didn't actually hold any value in price. So your area that sits in here, which is your high, didn't actually lead to anything. So the point that you're coming into is a valid 15-minute demand. Remember, why is that? Because we've created a break and then retest. Like it is a valid point. If it is a smart money trap, it'll push it to a seller's point. Okay. So given that's the case, I understood that, and all I looked for was a way to get in, and all we had was inducement low into extreme demand, break, which then had a really quick pull down and internal break, internal take, which was showing me that this area of random demand to supply that didn't break through anything was more or less being treated as that smart money. So the same type of entry I've been going over as a continuation happened in here, and my entry was somewhere in here like that with my break even um, at the take of that high. Okay. Realistically, looking back, my break even should have been the take of that high. But if it didn't go, I didn't really want to sit in this for too long, which is not something I'm fucking interested in doing. I don't want to go sideways for this long because that'll be used as liquidity later. I would rather just get in and out, cut emotions so that my emotions for selling, I'm all recovered and I haven't taken a trade in my mind, rather than take a buy that sits in there for 30 minutes to then catch a sell. Like I'll just be fatigued. So I cut that out. That's a mental thing for me, but your break even makes sense there. Targeting the highs. You could even take full here and completely hedge against yourself in that way. In taking 2%, doesn't matter what. Okay. So understanding that entry there at the exact same time, the inducement low, EU induced further into this point and started to move. So both are showing bullish confirmations from this area. If it's a smart money trap, it'll react from here to induce those buyers. Obviously, break high, and it'll do the same and form some type of retail liquidity on both sides. Okay. So the moment we were coming into that selling area, retest and into that point, that's when I jumped down to a lower time frame. Now you didn't even need to because seller's area, break of structure, you can set this limit. Completely valid, no divergence, same thing, break of structure, set limit. Both is valid to set. Very straightforward and simple. I saw both of those entries there, and I wasn't happy because I wanted to make sure that this was being used as a smart money and not this. So I needed a second confirmation. Well, on GU, on EU, we had price obviously create break but no retest, so that wasn't good enough for me. I need to see sellers getting in control here. Price pushed up. There's a 2-minute point that sits here. I had one leg. On the second leg, I set the limit off of here, and this tapped me in. I actually got okay with spread, so that was my entry. 6 pip stop loss. Like that. My break even was the next point buyers can get in control. Well, I've got break, retest, which leads to that break. So realistically, this low is there, which is close enough to here. So I was fine to go break even when it takes the external low, given the confirmations. GU at the same time in that 15-second range had break, build up liquidity, mitigation, push. As this broke, as you can see on EU, as we got that second break and that retest showing that this is a bullish range, EU mitigated the top 15-second point at the exact same time. So I had selling confirmation, break and retest, selling confirmation. I was happy to understand that both would respect it. The moment we broke here, limit set, this obviously never came back up. Okay, so that was my entry model on that. Like I said, I don't have necessarily an entry model in what I'm looking for. I just want to see sellers in control. Okay, so that was the entry. No entry on GU. Now, like I said before, GU made a lot more sense to hold more long term because GU had built more traps in terms of there's a lot more balance to fill in here, big imbalance here. You can hold a longer profit target. This is where I mismanaged this trade, funnily enough, is understanding that this external low will now be weak. 1 to 4 should have been my full take profit. I took 50% at 1 to 3, and then I held for longer, which was just silly. Should have just secured 4% and been happy, which is what it did. And then obviously reaction the other way, like that. Okay. Is there any questions about that? That is a difficult one. The case study is going to do my head in, but that's kind of the reading on it. So we've got medium inducement, that then led to an inducement inside of a possible Behringer range with major induced into a 4-hour point. We're in a 4-hour point. That's what we're working with. Okay. Everyone's probably brain is fried, but we'll go with it. Thanks, Matt. Cheers, brother. Soaking it in. Reason I didn't look for a trade here, this was that Thursday trade I went over from before. I didn't bother looking because we had news. So when there's a news day, whatever red news, you will not see me take a trade. I'm not even going to bother. I won't even look. But there was that GU sell, which you would have caught break even on, which you normally do with news anyway. For me, it can just get fucked. It's not worth the headache. Alrighty. So this was Friday's trade. This one's going to be fun to explain as well. Okay, so like we said, next place buyers can get in control on EU. We've obviously got 15-minute external low. We've created a new external range with the take of retest and creating a new high. This is my external range. We've now had an external range into a mitigation of this area, which is a larger time frame supply to demand. You don't need to be too perfect with your supply to demand points. Just if a point holds value one way and created a big move, and then the price comes into it, messes around a whole bunch, and then creates a break in trend, just mark it out. Seriously. Don't be too specific. Even with your points of interest, don't be too specific on the entry itself, okay? Because the entire area as such is supply and demand areas, and that's what I've tried to push to you guys recently. So we've come into this point. Given that we've come into this point, taken 15-minute liquidity, we've also come into a point. We're bullish on every time frame. The chance of this point holding, this first point, is slim. The chance of the point holding above it is still slim, just lead slim. Okay. Given what GU's done, we've come into a point, medium inducement into mitigation. Same scenario as what EU's doing. We're not getting move down. It's not breaking the low. We are getting bullish confirmations from a bullish point. More or less, this entire area is a smart money trap. Okay. We're expecting to take the highs, 15-minute take of liquidity, 15-minute mitigation, more than likely taking the opposite high or the opposite low, depending on the scenario, obviously. So for me, smart money trap. That for me, where price was, this was my first area of smart money trap. Now, you have to also understand each of these highs hold a certain amount of liquidity. They're 5-minute shit liquidity, but they still hold. So if you're going to enter a trade where it's got heaps of wicks, you're better off going break even and wearing a break even than price coming down and doing this. Because Bryce's aim is to induce people. So at each high, it may induce people. Just understand that. And I'll explain why, in that thinking, why I managed it, how I managed it. So beautifully on GU, we had an internal 5-minute break here, which then gave us retest. But if we go on the 1 minute, if you missed this detail, you cooked yourself. You've got break, retest, push, take a retest. So coming into this point, it's given us a really, really nice internal 1-minute range inside this point. Beautiful. So that's not done by chance. Okay. Same thing on EU. This EU one is long as shit. Go on the 5-minute. I can't remember. Okay, so we had this area, break, retest, break, take a 5-minute structure, 5-minute supply. It is a valid supply area. I don't give a shit if it broke it through 5-minute point. It is a valid point. Cool. In here, created, like I said, that entire point is valid. This in here pulled down and took liquidity. Then came in and mitigated a point. Push up, break, retest, break. Take a retest, which shows strong demand, remember, for our normal rules. So that is our current 1-minute range. Break, retest, break. 1-minute range is low, is high. Okay. So now we need to know if this area that we've come into is a smart money trap or is a valid supply to push price down. How do we know this? It needs to induce something. What have we got on both pairs? Well, we've got break, retest. We've got internal break with internal retest. This one we've got break, retest. So we've given us 2 points to internally move off of. If we mark out points that are important to us, you've got this area of demand here, which is quite nice. Or you can do what I did and go extreme, 1 minute. You don't have to do this. It just looked nicer at the time. Supply, demand, decisional. Funnily enough, made a really nice looking candle. Okay. Just like every range, extreme in every range, decisionals in every range. They all work the same. Supply to demands hold value and extremes hold value to us. Okay. Beautiful. So EU breaks for a 5 minute high. Okay. We break through a 5 minute high, we then induce low. What does this tell us? Well, this tells us that this could possibly be a break. Well, what do we need to know if it's a bearish break? We need break, retest, push. Okay. Well, it is not giving us that. So first off the bat, this is looking more like an inducement, which will create that trap which we love, which we're after, given that this lines up with our bias of possibly being a weak supply, which is beautiful. Okay, so this inducement. At the exact same time, what do we get? An inducement of our first internal low and a react off decisional, because the decisional is a valid point. If you'd like to have this whole area as demand and mark out, I think there's probably like a 3 minute point here. Go, like, that's fine. That is fine. It looks clean, so why not? Okay, so that's my reasoning behind marking out like that. You don't need to. All right, so now I need to know who is in control and from where. So we've got a divergence, we've got a mitigation of an inducement of an internal point, and at the exact same time, we have a divergence on EU giving us an external break. This external break does line up with our 5 minute structure. 5 minute structure take, you expect a retest, which is then pushed. That retest will more than likely take liquidity. We have taken liquidity. Okay. Given that's the case, we've got beautiful divergence here, making a lower low. Whoops, wrong one. A lower low on EU, which is nice. Yeah. And at the same time, we're making a lower high or a higher low on GU. So divergence. I now need to know who the hell is in control. That is what I'm after. Okay. Into this point, this is where reading internals goes. Break, retest, push. So we then had retest. So sellers could have been in control. And that is completely valid. So this could have been a sell, and I was looking to sell here, but I need to know who's in control. So we've got break, retest, push into demand. Will this point hold? I need to know. Break of retest. If price then pushes and does this, I know that this retest is valid and we're more than likely in a bearish range between here and here. This point will next be my next invalidation. That's not what happened. Instead, we had one leg to the upside, respecting demand, respecting demand, respecting demand. Second break. Okay, it's now showing me that this area is not holding the weight at what this area is. Okay, so it's indicating that that's the case. At the same time, EU gave that smart money reaction of quick inducement, quick inducement. So at the time of the inducement, which is like here, this is moving quickly. GU is showing bullish confirmations. This is now a weak supply lining up with my weak supply here. This is a weak supply lining up with my weak supply. I set my limit off of the 2 leg, covering the high, covered the low. On EU, no entry. Your entry on EU, very, very hard to do. Supply to demand, internal break, limit set. That is your entry on EU. A lot quicker, a lot harder to do. Not 2 confirmations, only 1. So very, very hard to enter. But that is a valid entry. It is showing a clear break of structure from pushing through supply. At the same time, GU is giving confirmations to the upside. So this is valid. Okay. Reason I didn't do it, I was just too focused on GU1. But full take profit. I went. Maybe my stop loss is a little bit shorter. 5, I think it was. So I covered just to the high. 3.5, nice and easy. EU, much better entry if you could get an EU. Valid entry there. 1 to 5 to the highs. Given I took GU, the reason I took GU is GU gave me structure. EU didn't, which means my EU would have been off the nice entry, which is mitigation second break. So I would have got in on the second break, which is market execute, probably that. Leave 7 pips for spread, 1 to 3, 1 to 3.5. So there was a lot more room to cover on GU, given I could minimize my stop loss and get a better entry. So yeah, that was the entry. The moment I broke through this high, break even. In terms of why this retested, it supply, demand. Hitting supply to demand, buyers in control. Moment I mitigated this and pushed, knew I was all good. Wasn't coming back. Okay. Hopefully that makes sense. That one's full on too. Funny enough, week of just full on fucking shit. Okay. And then to end of the week, it kept going, and then news came out, which I don't actually know what it ended up doing. Fucking around doing nothing. Okay, so not a lot there, but you've got 1 to 3 or 1 to 3, so 3%. Nothing on GU I necessarily think is valid in here. A lot harder to take. EU's entry was a lot cleaner, which gives a 1 to 4. So you've got 7R. You've then got this entry here of a 1 to 8. Valid as fuck, which is hard to get in. For me, I'm not going to count that because it was too hard to get in. You've then got this one here of a 1 to 4.85. You'd go 1 to 4.5. 11R-ish on that. 1 to 2, valid to take. Not enough RR in my opinion. 1 to 3, so that's 14R. And then you've got this trade here, which was hard to catch at the start, which went 1 to 8. So I won't count that. So you've got anywhere from 10 to 15R, dependent on how you manage trades, on these two pairs as continuation entries. Continuation entries are harder because you've got to act quickly. Okay. Are there any questions to do with that? If not, we'll do AU. Sweet.